Marcio from Sustain. From your perspective, are we getting there? Are we moving fast enough towards circularity? What do you want to share with us in terms of what we can do better and what are we doing already?
Well, thank you, Kobe, very much. Thank you for the organizer for inviting me to this panel to balance gender. I wish that in the construction sector we had this wonderful imbalance here. Well, nowadays I think people think that Wi-Fi is the most important thing we need, but we still need shelter, we still need food. So shelter is important, remember. And others, I think that we can live in a Zoom screen or now in the metaverse, but I think that we still like to engage with each other, and that's why we moved to cities. For instance, myself, I was raised in a farm until I was 6, and then I was scared to hear from the mayor of Dhaka North that 2,000 people, they have 2,000 new people every day in Dhaka. And so many years ago, I also moved to a city because of my school. And that was a challenge many people see every day. So my name is Marcio Viegas. I'm the founder and managing director of Sustain. We are a micro multinational, as I say, doing activism and also consulting and training around sustainability and namely around climate action and circular economy. So answer to your question, no, climate action is not moving fast enough. By the way, I don't want to distract you, but the new draft for the cover decision has just been published, and very concerning, we still see language on 1.5 or 2.0. We don't want to see that. I mean, business, we are behind 1.5, and after this meeting, please, let's talk to the negotiators, and push for 1.5, please, to move this faster. So back to the content here. 17 years after I moved to the city, I became a civil engineer, and I started working with construction. Although I'd never built a dog's house, so that's I always work with environmental stuff, and waste was and is a problem. So in the construction sector, 30% of what is in does not become a product, or 40% even. So that's waste. Even if you are not concerned about nature, about natural resource, that's inefficiency. And I'll talk about finance later on. Any investor will not like this business case. So when you have something that you're wasting, Michael Porter from Harvard, not necessarily a tree hugger, he said that very clearly many years ago. Pollution is inefficiency. And when we learn about how to calculate concrete structures, we engineers, we multiply by 1.4 or 1.5 at the end of the very difficult calculations. So it's 40% more of what our very modern computers calculate now. So that's called the so-called safety factor, phi, Greek letter, which I also call ignorance factor, because we multiply everything by 40% more of all the materials. Maybe that could be good for you, but we don't like it, and no, this is not good. If you just as a curiosity, for metallic construction, we also multiply everything by 1.15. So that's 15% more of what all the computers can show to us. So inefficiency, forget nature for a while if you want. Inefficiency for any P&L, profit and loss manager, is not good. For any investor, is not good. The good news is that we have, by the way, in the cover decision, they talk about 5.6 trillion gap. The good news is that only with green bonds, we have already accumulated 2 trillion. So we are talking about trillions. So although there is a gap in investment, and last night at that very letter, Mr. Lula da Silva, the new president-elect of Brazil, was very passionate about asking countries to fulfill the commitment of the 100 billion per year. So that's billions. The gap is trillions. And in finance, we have those trillions. So I'll come back later to talk about how to make those trillions become real implementation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And a lot of food for thought. And I'm glad that you're picturing some very positive examples of what can happen, but also giving us a real stark check into reality and what is happening in the value chain in the construction industry, and a very valuable and powerful chain to really unpack and make more sustainable. And I think circularity is the passion of everybody here. Let's unpack it a little bit further. And Magli, I want to come back to you. You previously mentioned the Circular Cities Barometer that Wholesome has just recently launched. Are there any common elements across the different cities that you have studied that have enabled them to begin to shift from a linear to a circular economy? What insights can you give us there? And advice also.
I'm glad I mentioned it, that is triggering so much interest. Can I just answer quickly to Marcio for a second?
Sure.
We are not pushing for the safety factor, and I think your 40% is very underestimated, because if you start from the first engineer all the way to the top, I think you can talk double here. Because who is going to take the risk of not putting enough concrete in a construction and have a building collapse? So everyone is putting the suspenders, the belts, and once you multiply suspenders and belts, you end up with a complete chain effect that you put more cement, meaning you need bigger foundations. Just ridiculous. But anyway, side story. Back to the barometer question. You know, it's great. When we launched it 6 months ago with Bloomberg, we didn't really know what was going to happen. We just were trying to take action somehow, because everyone says if you want to do things, you need to measure things. That's the only way to trigger action. We've been absolutely amazed by what that barometer has become in less than 6 months. Basically, we took the 25 top cities and measured them over a dozen of criteria, which looks at everything, not just the circularity of the construction, but also the renewable energy, circularity of the waste, mobility, etc., etc. So it's not just construction, right? It's a full thing. What's amazing is many cities are calling us saying, we want to be in that barometer. To really answer your question, what was it in common? The only true commonality was a big will from the mayors, and we heard it before from Bangladesh, of people who wants to move. But cities are so different, because in the south, in the north, that I can't really say that we saw common things. But because we have seen, for example, Copenhagen said that 75% of their mobility will be without cars in the coming years. We have seen Delhi with a fully renewable tram system. We've seen Johannesburg planting millions of trees in the city, etc., etc. So each of them have their own story. But what's very interesting, and what needs to happen to that barometer, which will be the next step, because it would be criminal to leave it there, is to now use all these best practices to share, use healthy competition between mayors, especially when they are men, there's a bit of ego there, they want to be first, but that really helps trigger actions. And so I'm extremely proud of what it has become, and we need to take it now to the next step.
Okay, thank you. Wow, I like that response very much. And what you said, just informally to Garcia, there was Marcia there was very interesting to me, because I think there's a lot of connection to be made between the circular movement and the insurance industry, because the insurance industry keep on telling us they're coming into the party too late. If they could come in earlier and de-risk some of these things, and not necessarily by adding more safety margins, other means, more sustainable means, the building can ultimately then be insurable, and affordably so, because insurance is, of course, the penetration of insurance across Africa for public buildings, for instance, is almost, it's so low, and it's something we really need to address. And I think addressing it through a circular perspective, there's a lot of value to be had in that. So I implore on you, all working in this space, really do talk to our insurance colleagues, and we'll try and facilitate that discussion and move forward on the few things we are already doing with the insurance industry. You want to say one last thing, and then I want to go to closing remarks from our other two panelists as well. We have to wrap up.
I was just saying it is a time to do it because we have now the data for it, which was not the case in the past.
Exactly. That's why I brought it up, because I think we're ready. We're getting ready now to have that conversation. So in closing remarks, we've heard now really from an Egyptian perspective, Sarah, in the MENA region, largely speaking, how do you think we can better articulate the value proposition of what you said in your opening remarks within a regional perspective? And please, let's keep it to 1 minute wrap up.
I think it's really important to look at what is happening in the MENA region between the projects that you see out there. So happening in the MENA region is a project about new cities popping up in the desert that are designed to be radical reinterpretations of cities. And at the same time, in Egypt, we have the first green certified community for low-income communities. Moving forward, I think we do not have time to keep on looking at the academia and only the research. We need to implement projects on the ground that are usable for everyone. And the first thing that we need to do is that we need to look at where the whole process starts at the design. The architecture of cities, the master planning, the products itself, the concept itself starts with the architecture. And I think the various sectors have to feed into and serve in influencing and collaborating with what you have in terms of building materials, with what you have as strategies, with the policies and the politics, so that we redefine that what we are building is not just aesthetic. It has the value because it's relevant. The IPCC released a report saying that the construction sector is lagging behind in its fight. And I think we should take this as an opportunity, a call for action. We need to reevaluate what we call beautiful. We need to look at our homes. Currently now we are designing a very small, sustainable rural home, and we're really pushing the limits. If we don't need it, don't design it, don't build it. Keep it simple.
Thank you very much for those remarks. And let's remind ourselves, Egypt is committed to building 17 new cities. We can do it differently. We don't have to do it the old ways. And we are so excited to be part of that process and to go on that journey with you. But let's remind ourselves that there is a new, complete Nairobi built every 16 days. So we really are at the cusp of making a difference with people, leaders like this who have the answers, who have the solutions. One closing remark: we didn't touch enough about finance, we didn't touch enough about this. This conversation needs to continue, but a wrapping up, very quick, 30-second closing remark for us. We give the voice to the man in the room for a change.
Thank you very much. Well, 30 seconds. So 2 trillion, how to make that bigger and at the same time real? Because you see, there are 2 trillion green bonds around and the world is not green, right? So how to make it better? First, we need principles, we need taxonomies, we need standards. So for principles, I urge you to have a look on the green bonds principles. For instance, it's a private sector initiative. For taxonomies, there are taxonomies already in place in Europe, in China, in Russia, in many other countries, missing big in the US, in the whole of Africa and other countries. So we need taxonomies, and then eventually we need the standard. With taxonomies, we can define what is green and real green, which is good for investors, because I know and I can go to bed relaxed that I'm investing in something that's officially green, and also good for the real economy, because is a 20% more efficient building green or not? Maybe not. In Europe, it has to be 30% at least if you're refurbishing a building. And finally, standards. Have a look on the ISO standards, for instance. Build using those standards. It is true that some of them still talk about the multiply and everything about 1.4 and 1.4 again, and then we have 1.56 and so on. But that's how to move it. So we are moving, and this is a COP for implementation. So principles, taxonomies, and standards. Thank you.
Marcio, thank you. Thank you for those passionate words. Ruby, I'm trying to catch your eye. Come and please.